All right, we'll get started. Thanks for coming to this webinar. It's on CircleCI Advanced Features on how to set up and build and test your projects faster on CircleCI. My name is Scott Wheeler. I'm a support engineer at CircleCI. I'm joined by Angelisa Candler, who will be answering questions in the chat if you have any. There will also be ample time for Q&A at the end. Going right into the agenda, we're going to talk about how to find answers and ask for help, executors, machine, Windows, macOS, and Docker, workflows, secrets management, test results and artifacts, how to speed up your builds, CircleCI APIs, and then the Q&A session at the end. How to find answers and ask for help. We have public documentation. Docs are a great place to explore different concepts on CircleCI. You can find almost any information you need here. If something is not clear, please reach out to support and let us know. We have the support center. This is the main place you will go to open a support ticket. You can navigate to the docs and you can use the search function to view our support center articles, which has a lot of great information on common problems that users face on CircleCI. You can also submit tickets from the CircleCI dashboard from the support dropdown. Click Get Support, and it will take you over to the support center. Additionally, we have a great user community. It's available at discuss.circleci.com. Discuss is a great place to reach out to the community and find users who are doing something similar to what you're building on CircleCI. There's something specific you're interested about in a third-party tool, library, or dependency, there's a good chance that someone on Discuss is using it too. Moving on to executors. So the Docker executor, CircleCI offers a ton of convenience images for that are language specific. Some examples are Ruby, Node, PHP, or Android. We also offer several resource class options. Here are 5 that cover most use cases. If you need larger than the extra large resource class, please reach out to support. We'd be happy to help you. Quick note, service images are accessible at 127.0.0.1, then using the port, not with localhost. You could view our options for different convenience images at circle.ci/Docker configuration, and the pre-installed tools that we use on our Docker images at circle.ci/Docker tools. Resource classes, like I said, small, medium. Medium is default. The larger the resource class you use, the more credits that it will use. So please plan your resource class appropriately to the resources you need. Here in the config example on the right, we have a build that will spin up on the CircleCI node image. It will check out your code, and then it will echo Docker into the build output window. Moving on to Windows. Windows is VM-based to guarantee full job isolation. It uses the server core version of Windows Server 2019 Data Center Edition. PowerShell is the default shell. However, Bash and CMD can be manually selected. It also supports Docker Engine Enterprise, so you can run Windows containers. There's only one resource class available on Windows for now. It's the medium resource class, which comes with 4 CPUs and 15 gigabytes of RAM. For more information getting started on Windows, you can visit circle.ci/hello Windows. The config example on the right will spin up a Windows executor. It'll check out any code in the repository, and then using PowerShell will write Windows into the build output window. The machine executor is also VM-based. It runs by default, is a Ubuntu-based VM to provide application isolation, as well as access to privileged Docker commands. There are 2 resource classes available to use with the machine executor. It's medium and large. The config example on the right will spin up a machine image, check out any code in the repository, and echo machine into the build output window. The macOS executor is available for users who need to perform testing on iOS and macOS applications. The macOS executor provides access to iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, and Apple TV simulators. There are 2 resource classes available for the macOS executor. However, the large is available by request. Please reach out to the support team if you need a larger instance of macOS. You can view more information on getting started with macOS by visiting circle.ci/hello Mac. The config example on the right will spin up a macOS executor using Xcode version 11.0.0. It will check out any code in the repository, and it will echo macOS in the build output window. Some best practices when building on CircleCI: use a specific tag or image ID for Docker images. The reason you want to be more specific is if you write CircleCI/node, it will always use the most up-to-date version of Node. If you're building your application on a specific version of Node, breaking changes could happen from upstream images. The second best practice here is to use Dockerize to prevent race conditions for databases. The example on the screen will have the Dockerize. We'll ask the Dockerize command to time out after 120 seconds if a connection to the database cannot be established. The build will not move forward until a successful connection to the database has happened. Third-party registries. We support most container registries for Docker images. Some examples are AWS, Docker Hub, or Quay.io. The example on screen will show how you can authenticate to those services. All right, moving on to workflows. Why workflows? Workflows will allow you to decompose your build settings. It will create a story of CircleCI with frequent end-to-end tests. Run and troubleshoot jobs independently with real-time status feedback. Schedule workflows for jobs that should only run periodically. Fan out to run multiple jobs in parallel for efficient version testing. And fan in to quickly deploy to multiple platforms. Some definitions. Workflows, a set of rules defining how jobs such as build, test, and deploy are run, giving teams granular control over their software development process. Jobs, a collection of steps in an execution environment to run them in. Step is an executable command. Build is an obsolete way to mean jobs and workflows altogether. Build mostly refers to CircleCI 1.0, which has since been deprecated. Fan out and fan in speaks to parallelism. In the example on the screen, the box on the left would represent the build of your application. The boxes in the center would represent testing your application in 4 different containers. And then on the right, the box would represent deploying your application. Different types of workflows. We have scheduling and cron workflows, which will allow you to define a schedule for jobs that you want to run at certain periods. Approval jobs provides control over steps that need manual approval to continue running. Branch specific allows you to specify which branches a build should run on. And tag specific allows you to specify which tags a build should run on. Moving into secrets management. We can use environment variables to manage secrets at the project level and within the config. At the step level, you can define an environment variable underneath the command. At the job level, you can define an environment variable under the job name using the environment tag. And at the container level, you can define the environment variable underneath the specified image. Defining environment variables from project settings, navigate to the project settings for the project you're currently working with. and then click Add Variable and enter the value and the name of your variable. Some gotchas with environment variables. CircleCI doesn't support environment variable interpolation. This means defining an environment variable that depends on another environment variable will print out just the name of the intended environment variable. Another example, modifying the path directly using environment variables can result in applications being unavailable. Should avoid directly modifying the path in the environment. And the solution is to use bash environment to output the environment variable into the bash environment, where it will load even with a non-interactive shell. In the event that environment variables are overridden, you should check the precedence order. There's a good chance the environment variable might be configured at the project level, but then overwritten in the config at the step or container level. Using context to manage environment variables allows you to limit the access to the environment variables to teams with using security settings on GitHub. This functionality is not available on Bitbucket currently. Moving into test results. CircleCI supports JUnit XML metadata and Cucumber JSON. Test results need to be stored in a folder. In the example on the screen, we're storing test results from the root directory /rspec. The test results also exist in this directory. You should not target the test results file specifically when using store test results. Store test results also gives access to the Insights tool. After storing your test results, information such as most commonly failed tests, your slowest tests, job success rate, and other information will be available in Insights. You can access from the dashboard on the left side, the Insights button. Moving into build optimizations. Different caching strategies to help speed up your build time. Dependency caching, workspaces, artifacts, and Docker layer caching. Dependency caching is used to cache application dependencies between jobs. Workspaces is used for data produced in a job that needs to be available to subsequent jobs in the workspace. Artifacts are for data that is available after a job finishes. And Docker layer caching is used when building a custom Docker image on CircleCI. In the example on the screen, you can see dependency caching is used in job to job as application dependencies are being used. This is a good way to not have to run npm install every time you run a build. All of the data will be cached on the build and be available. This is the most used caching strategy. And again, it's used to persist data between the same job and multiple workflow runs. An example to configure dependency caching by using restore cache, your dependency management tool install, and then saving the cache. The cache key is a unique identifier. Some common templates are .branch, build number, environment, .variable name, and checksum file name. To be more specific on these, this will create the cache key with the branch inline, the build number inline, or based on an environment variable provided to the build. Checksum is probably the most commonly one used. You'll use checksum on your .lock file or your dependency file to generate a checksum. So every time the build is run, if the checksum is different than the last time, we'll generate a new cache and not use the old cache anymore. So as you update your dependencies, it'll generate new cache keys. Rule of thumb, start from being specific and become less specific. Should be really careful when using general cache keys In some cases, general cache keys may be out of date, and we prefer to download the newest packages instead of risking using old versions of dependencies. You can see here at the bottom, maven-repo-v1 is a general cache key. Any cache key that matches this format will be used for the dependencies. When we get very specific, this is maven-repo-v1.branch, and then the checksum of the pom.xml or the dependency file. There's no way to clear a cache. A good workaround for clearing the cache is to increment the version number. We recommend putting v1 or v your favorite number in the cache key so it can be incremented manually as you need to manually make changes to your cache key. Moving into workspaces. Workspaces move data in between sequential jobs in a workflow. This means a data store will be available to every job within a single workflow, and then after the workflow is finished, the data will no longer be available. An example to creating workspaces. Workspaces is super easy to use. Create persist to workspace, provide the root directory and the paths you would like to save to the workspace. At the downstream job, you simply attach the workspace and tell the directory you would like to attach it to. And now that directory is available to the following build, to the builds in the downstream jobs. Artifacts. Artifacts persist data after a workflow is completed and gone. This is most useful in situations where you want to distribute an application. However, CircleCI should not be used to distribute your applications. We don't guarantee how long artifacts will be available. Creating an artifact is relatively simple, using the store artifacts command and providing a path to the artifacts. Moving on to Docker layer caching. DLC caches the individual layers of any Docker image built on CircleCI built during your CircleCI jobs, then reuses unchanged image layers on subsequent CircleCI runs rather than rebuilding the entire image every time. DLC can be used with setup remote Docker, can be used when building Docker images on the machine executor, and DLC is only used when building images on CircleCI. In the examples below, it's pretty easy to enable DLC on a build just by using the Docker layer caching command and set that value to true. Moving into speeding up your builds using Parallelism. Parallelism is defined using a parallelism key in the config.yml. You set that number to the amount of parallel containers you would like your builds to run on. In most cases, you would use parallelism while splitting tests to define subsets of tests to run in different parallel containers. You can split tests using the CircleCI CLI by globbing the test files and then splitting the test files, which will only work inside the build. Moving into debugging failed builds. Common errors and mistakes on CircleCI. Looks like there's a typo there. That should say exit code 137 out of memory error. In cases of exit code 137, if you're using Java, you can use the example on screen to specify the Java options that you are using. If you would like your build to only use 3 gigs of RAM while running Java. The second option is to use a higher resource class to provide more resources to the applications when building, testing, or deploying. Problem 2, filtered tag in a workflow, but every commit running a build. So this is the case where CircleCI will look for branches before tags. So when building on tags only, you need to specify that we're going to ignore branches. That way CircleCI is not looking to build any branches. Problem, push a commit, but there isn't anything happening on CircleCI. You can use the CircleCI CLI to validate the configuration on your local machine and check the YAML syntax that there are no typos. Problem, cat command not found. Like I mentioned earlier, you don't want to modify the path environment variable directly, as it can override it and some system commands will be unavailable. Debugging with SSH. For more intense troubleshooting, you can use SSH to log into the executor while your build's running to better analyze what's happening in real time. You can view any debug logs that are stored on the machine, and you can manually trigger the build to see how things are running in CI. Moving on to deployment. At CircleCI, continuous integration is used to test and merge changes into the main branch as often as possible. Continuous delivery is used to deploy those changes so that your users and customers can utilize these changes as fast as possible. We offer a couple different methods to perform continuous deployment operations. It can be done using the deploy step, or you can use Orbs for reusable config that helps deploy to your favorite cloud platforms like Heroku, AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud Platform. The approval step is an important one to mention when talking about deployments. Set the approval step when you want to restrict a job from continuing before someone has a chance to approve it. This is mostly used in deployment situations where a program manager might want to be able to approve something before it gets released into production. Configuring approvals simple by creating a step with a type approval and requiring the previous job. If you want to restrict if you want to restrict an approval step to a certain group of folks, you can do that by creating a secure context, scoping the context to the team of approvers, and that'll prevent anyone who's not in the team from running the job. Sorry, it won't prevent it. The build will fail if they don't have access to the context, not allowing it to continue. Moving on to APIs. Common use cases of APIs. APIs allow you to trigger a build at any time, retrieve artifacts, get projects, and build information, and can help integrate with other tools. How to use APIs. So first, we need to have an API token. You can get an API token at circleci.com/account/API. There's two options when generating an API token, a project API token and a user API token. The project API token will be read-only. It can't be used to trigger builds, but you can get information such as build status and the badge that you see on your VCS build page that you post publicly. User API token will grant read-write access and can be used to trigger builds and perform write operations. Now we've reached the Q&A portion of our presentation. Please feel free to put any questions in the chat that you have. I'll be happy to answer them. All right, question, how do I remove or delete a user from CircleCI? Users are managed in the at the VCS provider level. If you would like to remove a user from your organization, you delete them from your VCS provider, and during the next CircleCI user sync, that user will be removed from CircleCI as well. How can I make my orbs private? Orbs are currently world readable as long as they're referenced by the correct name. We don't support private orbs right now, but you're welcome to leave feedback on the ideas portal to input a feature request. That's ideas.circleci.com. What is your IP address range for whitelisting? We are unable to provide an IP address range for whitelisting builds. This is because we run in multiple cloud environments and we use dynamic spin-up. So our builds will exist in AWS East and West, as well as GCP East. So it's not possible for us to give a definitive list of IP addresses that the cloud system will use. An alternative method to that would be to use a tool such as ngrok to create a tunnel back to your private infrastructure that CircleCI can connect over. Is the performance plan better for my needs? The performance plan will provide additional resources and access to premium features. To get more information on performance plan, reach out to billing@circleci.com. All right, that looks to be like it's all the questions. I'm going to go ahead and end it here. If your question wasn't answered, we will reach out to you by the end of today at the email address you used to sign up for the webinar. Thanks for joining, everyone.